Now that we're done with Killer Santas, let's watch a movie about a man who wants his daughters to kill his new wife because it's Christmas.
Jingle those bells and deck the halls and a frosty Rudolph and Santa's sleigh and a mistletoe and a dreidel too.
Before I get into this review though, I'd like to mention real quick that my friend Latrice and I just recently did a trailer review for X-Men Apocalypse, and of course that discussion is not on my channel, but on one of her channels, Urban Underdogs. If you haven't heard of this channel yet, essentially she just discusses a wide variety of topics on there. She is a very interesting and intelligent person to listen to, so in general it comes highly recommended. And I had a lot of fun talking about this trailer with her. We're planning to do more discussions like this in the future, so if you'd like to check that out, I'm going to put a link to it in the description below. So now getting into my review for this video, tonight I'm going to be talking about a film called Home for the Holidays, and getting into this movie, I really did not have high expectations for it. I had never heard of it previously, and of all places, I found it in this little collection. I was expecting it to be the biggest piece of shit that I was going to watch this Christmas season, but to my pleasant surprise, it's actually pretty damn good. This movie follows four sisters who are visiting their father for Christmas, and once they arrive at his house, they find that he's very sick, and he tells them that his new wife is trying to slowly poison him to death, and as I mentioned at the beginning of this video, he tells them that they're going to have to kill her. Now, these women actually hate their father. They strongly believe that he drove their mother to killing herself, and even as they're gathered around to listen to him, he doesn't even try to fake being nice. He insults each and every one of them. But at the same time, as much as they dislike this man, and as much as they're actually looking forward to the day he dies, they are not going to allow him to die in this horrible manner because they know that if he is in trouble, then helping him out is the right thing to do. Now, a common problem in a lot of horror movies is that many times you can barely even tell the characters apart personality-wise, but one of the things that I love most about this movie is that each of these women had their own distinct personality and you knew who each of them was. Like there's this one daughter who's a raging alcoholic and who's actually quite insane. I actually expected her to raise a higher body count than anyone else in this movie. And there's another one who sleeps around with a lot of men, which back in the early 70s when this was made was considered to be a huge flaw. The two who stand out the most, though, are the oldest sister and the youngest sister, just because of how much they're at odds with one another. The oldest sister is more or less the leader of the group, and she kind of acts as the moral compass, even though she hates the old man just as much as everyone else and doesn't do anything to hide it. She does believe in what he's saying because he's never really been a bullshitter. He's always been very straightforward with them. And so she makes it her mission to stop this woman who may or may not be a murderer. And then the youngest sister, who is played by a very young and very adorable Sally Field, although she's still pretty adorable. She's more of this sort of wide-eyed, innocent character, and she's leaning more towards the stepmother's side. She doesn't believe that this woman would hurt a fly. And there's very valid reasoning behind this as well, because once these women meet their stepmother and they start interacting with her, she really just comes off as the nicest woman in the world. She doesn't seem like the murdering type at all. However, she is strongly suspected of having killed her previous husband, and there's this conversation she has with them at the dinner table where she does start to come off as very creepy and threatening. So throughout the movie, you really don't know whose side to take until the very end. As much as I enjoyed this movie, though, there were some flaws with it. I mean, for the most part, the plot was very unpredictable. I really genuinely did not know what was going to happen next most of the time. But then there was a certain point where I could see what was going to happen at the end. and then it happened, and once it did, it just came off as very silly, and I think it could have been a lot more effective and left more of an impact if there was more restraint in someone's performance. Not only that, but there are some exterior shots in the movie where the vision suddenly becomes very hazy and blurry, and I'm guessing that they were trying to make it look more like wintertime in those shots. This was a TV movie, so I suspect that it might have been for budgetary reasons that they did this to imply snow, but it was a pretty bad aesthetic. These flaws weren't enough to make this movie a one and done deal for me, though. I mean, aside from the way that the movie ended, the acting and the writing in this were just so good that I honestly love this movie, and it's especially refreshing after the bad run that I've had this year with Christmas horror films. So, if you can find Home for the Holidays, it definitely comes recommended, and you should check it out for this season. Anyway, that's all I've got to say about this movie. I hope you all have a Merry Christmas.